Hello, everyone. Nice for coming. Thank you for coming, and nice to see so many people online. So also thank you for coming. My name is Bruno Alves de Almeida. I'm the curator of the Jan van Eyck, and I would like to welcome you to the 5th edition of the Academy project, which is a collaboration between the Jan van Eyck Academy, the Rijksacademie in Amsterdam, the UniArts, Helsinki Academy of Fine Arts in Finland, and the Sastamainen Foundation also in Finland. So for this afternoon, we have the tree that grew out of my womb, the event that brings together the previous generation of participants here at the Jan van Eyck from last year with the current one. So we're very happy to have here in the auditorium Asha and Marie from last year, and joining us online, Manjot Kaur, Asha Karami, and Marie Caye will do a hybrid performance that you'll see in a second. And the whole event will be moderated by Hoette, who is a current participant of the Jan van Eyck. So monthly, the Jan van Eyck Academy and the Rijksacademie alternate in hosting a public event where their participants can show a little bit of the multifaceted practices that they have. And today is no exception of that. Later on, we will connect virtually to Finland and Amsterdam, where we will get some questions of the Rijksacademie and the UniArts in Helsinki. And you can find out more about the speakers and presenters today, but also see the previous editions of the Academy series online on the Jan van Eyck website and on the websites of the other two academies. So now I would like to give the floor to Hoette, who will take us throughout the rest of the event in this journey. Thank you so much. Hoette, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Bruno. Welcome everyone here at Jan van Eyck and those of you online. As you said, Bruno, my name is Hoette and I'm a current participant here at the Jan van Eyck Academy. It's really an honor to welcome everyone today for this edition of the Academy series. It's going to be an interactive performance lecture called The Tree That Grew Out of My Womb. I have for you some short instructions before it begins. So during this performance, you will be prompted to answer a question 5 times. Please answer the question with one single word, and the answers will be collected anonymously. You'll have about 60 seconds to write your word down when you're asked the question. For those of you who are joining online, you can do this through the chat. So just type your answer into the chat. And if you're sharing your connection with someone, you can type multiple answers into the chat as well. Here in the auditorium, you're going to be given a piece of paper to write down your word, and those will be collected by Anne, who's sitting at the back there. And Veronica, I believe, also. Thank you. So once you've written down your answers, please pass them towards Anne and Veronica to be collected. It's really important that you answer these questions because they're going to become part of the performance. You'll find out more at the end. So without further ado, we're going to start the performance, and I'm going to hand over to Marie, who is going to ask you the first question.
Thank you. So the first question is, what grew out of your womb? Please answer me in the chat or on paper in 1 word and in 1 minute. And for the physical audience, you will have a bit more time. So again, the question is, what grew out of your womb? answer either in the chat or in the paper that will be passed on to you. You have 30 more seconds. And now we continue with Manjot.
The other day, I was observing hair on my legs and wondered if I should wax them today or later on the weekend. My lazy self is always procrastinating the process and enjoys wandering in the micro world of porous skin and hair. As I observed, my sight fell on a cluster of hair on my vagina, and I noticed a strange growth. The hair seemed to be metamorphosing into emerald green grass and feathery moss. A high-pitched scent of the grass and fermented fragrance entered my nostrils. There was a new texture to the air, a moistness. My body started to adjust to its weather, deep time, and ecology. I did not know that sneaking into this pocket of moss growing on my body was to directly step into this vibrant zone of profound interconnectedness and intertwined semiotic systems. This, in turn, untangled my senses and the rhythm of my breath. Here, I felt the presence of an intimacy that wanted to include me. My ovaries, uterus, and vagina took hold of me and started to operate independently, forcing me to acknowledge the silent exchange through a language older than words, in which my muscles and limbs seemed utterly fluent. I felt as if my body was dissipating, liquefying, metamorphosing, birthing. I felt sheer gratitude that I did not tame my senses and allow the streaky eros between my flesh and the flesh of the earth. The landscape was breathing. Each flower, each leaf, each branch, each rock carried a world within itself, sustaining on a delicate cosmic equilibrium. Rocks, foliage, and corolla were chatting with one another and conferring with the blades of grass, passing down 1001 secrets and keeping them alive for centuries and for centuries to come. The myriad flows and exchanges between the interconnected mycorrhizal networks penetrating in the soil, the delicate yet resilient blades of grass touching the surface of rocks, the vine climbing on the trunk of a tree, the tree growing out from neatly arranged leaves. Cranes hunting for food, ripples radiating at the intersection where earth and water meet. In those ripples, the lotuses blossomed to compose a tightly woven cosmic. These encounters, negotiations, and reciprocities were gradually intensifying in this little pocket of moss. The leaves were sending ripples into the air in which the phoenix flew. The phoenix, while flying, whispered silently in my ear that living and dying and transforming is a matter of indifference in this fabric of community, where death is another kind of life. The sap was now running in my veins.
Question number 2. You told me what grew out of your womb. But now tell me, what are you the mother of? Please tell me in the chat or write it on paper in 1 word and 1 minute. So again, the second question is, what are you the mother of? And you have 20 more seconds. And now we continue with Asha.
Thank you. Hamid, video 1, please, and a bit darker here. Thank you. Een hete zomerochtend. Zo'n tropische dag waarop ik twijfel of ik toch niet een airconditioner moet nemen. Goed zijn is angstig zijn. De hele nacht liggen woelen. Niet alleen door de warmte, maar vooral door een soort interne jeuk. Ik weet ook niet hoe ik het anders moet noemen. Wakker worden met het beeld van schaduwflora voor een wrattige zonsopgang en de geur van mos. De jeuk had zich verplaatst naar mijn vagina. Misschien moet ik mijn vagina luchten. Ik had wel eens gelezen dat het goed is om 1 uur per dag zonder ondergoed te lopen. Eerst een koud bad. Ik kleed mezelf uit en laat het water lopen. Een zelfinspectie. Ik sla mijn nijlpaardenhoofd over. Mijn borsten zijn gevoelig. Mijn tepels lijken donkerder. Agressiever dan enig ander bruin. Mijn navel pijlt iets uit en mijn onderbuik opgezet. Mijn schaamlippen hebben de juiste herfstkleur. Houden van jonge pijn. Als sensationele bladeren, kwetsbaar, fijnkorrelig, omgeven door klierharen. Of nee, dit lijken wortels. Ik trek eraan, maar het breekt af. Ik heb hier geen tijd voor en ik ben moe. Het bad is klaar. Ik draai de kraan dicht en stap in bad. Het water is minder koud dan ik had gedacht. Ik ontspan me en voel mijn baarmoeder samentrekken. De ontwatering. Vlekken in het water. Een soort inferieur bloedpoederklodders. Een vezelig netwerk van rode en groene draden vertakken zich om me heen. Ik duik helemaal in het water, blijf zo lang mogelijk onder en kom weer met mijn hoofd omhoog. Iets donkergroens. Als stengels, als struikgewas, een sterke netelgeur. Overgangstinten en vergroeiingen. Het gezwel in mijn onderbuik duwt zich naar buiten. Je kunt ook van groei verdrinken. De vereiste gedachte van verdrinken, van afval, van zelfbevruchting. Wortels die op labyrinthische wijze hun weg in mijn baarmoeder vinden. Organisch, witte bloemen als zomerse bloeihoofdjes. Bloemknoppen ontspruiten als vleesbomen, trosvormige dode bloemen, omzwermd door nachtvlinders. Ik lik aan de nectar diep onderin. Hoe nu nog een ontbossing met het bos in je rug? Menstruerend struweel als een grote geslachtstuin. Poreus vermogen. Ik bos.
And now we continue with Manjot.
Now I sail in the wilderness. I swing with the wind. I photosynthesize under the mighty sun. Share and talk with my kin without hostility, and spread my seeds to new lands. I feel liberated when I touch my body. I spend satisfying hours observing the growth of new leaves, branches, and crawling insects on my body, as opposed to the idea of human growth. But sadly, my body is still politicized by lawmakers and the guardians of freedom and liberty. I'm only a mere extractable resource or a dump site for toxic byproducts of their economic progress. We are the victim, the victimized, the wronged. At the same time, humans who commit acts against us are said to be acting like animals. In other words, the perpetrator is seen as damaging nature from the outside, yet at the same time is criticized for being part of nature. While occupying and exploiting our lands, they're flourishing well in numbers and don't seem to hold anyway soon. In response, a few Earth rotations ago, we came together in a planetary assembly. We decided to invoke two of the archaic folk goddesses of fertility, sexuality, and abundance of humankind to propose alternative ways of thinking and living. One of them is Lajja Gauri, also known as Aditi Uttanapad. Originally, she is a lotus-headed Hindu goddess, associated with her elemental power of abundance, creation, fertility, and sexuality. She is depicted in a birthing posture. The focus of her mighty power is her distinct reproductive organs. Humans usually invoke her for vegetative fertility and good progeny. Early depictions of her were found in the Indus Valley seals. Artists have used the lotus as a metaphor for birth, life, and death. Well, this is what our version looked like. In the new avatar, the interconnectedness between the human and natural world is celebrated and worshipped. Here, Lajja Gauri is depicted giving birth to an ecosystem rather than a human child or a food plant. For us, this newly counter-narrated icon shares our collective vision of abundance, fertility, symbiosis, and regeneration. Resonating on ethical, ecological, social, and spiritual levels, this image represents an exuberant biodiversity and lays down the foundation for the emergence of a forest. Meanwhile, an eagle came to mother her eggs in her nest on the turquoise terrain, listening silently to the whole conversation. The second chosen archaic folk goddess is Tauret, the Great One. She is one of the most revered ancient Egyptian goddess, a protective goddess of maternity and childbirth, protector of women and children. She is a composite figure of hippopotamus, crocodile, lion, and human. She uses her fearsome nature as an apotropic device against demons who seek to destroy mother and child in the times of their weakness. She was a household deity, rather than a specific deity of the pharaoh, and she enjoyed massive popularity with everyday Egyptians. 5,000 years ago, it was believed that Tauret could save the children of thousands of humans, but sadly, humans could not save Tauret from themselves. Both hippopotamus and lion, which roamed freely, are now extinct in Egypt. Well, this is what our version looked like. In her new avatar, she rebirths inside a botanical womb, while herself giving birth to a tree. The botanical womb proposes a new iconography as a means to find fresh ways to elucidate the motherly phenomena, forms of articulation that free ideas and thinking from the conceptual straitjackets, enabling the mind to stretch beyond and begin to breathe anew. Full-blooded magic of new growth of shrubs, faint fragrance of flowers, the laughing scent of cool water, lapping up against the inner lining of the muddy shore of the lotus leaf-lined womb. Inside the watery womb, there she stands with a celestial gaze and bears chthonic powers, whose pungency echoes the sweat of her body and the strength of her legs, with which she pushes out of her uterus and holds in her lion paws the wishful ancestral tree. This ancestral tree is the water tree, the underground tree, the spiritual tree, the wishful tree, the mother tree, the child tree, the tree of creation and regeneration. My brother told me yesterday that he believes that each tree has the power to fulfill your wish. I hope humans would be able to bear with us and not mind if we borrow a few more of their old symbols and counter-narrate them for our current needs and requirements, since they are slowly erasing them from their collective conscious memory. The mythology will live with us and stir up new humility concerning other earthly beings on our local shared planet.
Question 3. Question 3 is, besides water, what can you drown in? Please answer in the chat or on paper in one word and in 1 minute. Again, besides water, what can you drown in? So again, question 3, besides water, what can you drown in? And now we continue with Marie.
So I've been thinking about this quote recently and before recently. man becomes, as it were, the sex organs of the machine world. It originates from Understanding Media from 1964 by Marshall McLuhan. And it is remarkable not only because it was very prescient of our modern days, but also and especially because it has been referenced so much. This idea has been the fundament of techno-utopist cultures, but also transhumanist cultures. But for today, I would like to give it a little bit of an alternative reading. Not celebrating this great birthing of our technological children, but rather looking more closely at how this process actually takes place. The full sentence from which this quote is derived is, "Man becomes, as it were, the sex organs of the machine world as the bee of the plant world, enabling it to fecundate and evolve ever new forms." So first of all, the words. Man is a frustrating way to mention humanity as a whole. It is particularly ironic that it's still the male aspect of humanity that is predominant when talking about reproduction. This quote is obviously from a different time, from the 1960s. But beyond the specific phrasing, the underlying concepts focus also on the narrow and gendered view of reproduction. The sex organs follows in a similar direction with the reference to the bees. The accent is on the moment of fecundation, the initiation of creating, and then disappearing. It is not on caring, it is not on nurturing. While Marshall McLuhan only seems to focus on the very short moment of fecundation, one could wonder if technology, things, engineered microbes, or architecture are indeed the children of humanity. Who is bearing them? Who is birthing them? Who is pregnant with them, feeds them, and takes care of them? Who are the mothers of the synthetic world? One could wonder, in this process of creating more stuff, why does humanity keep destroying its environment and its own people? Under neo-capitalism, an obvious answer would be greed and profit. But there is another theory that I find interesting, that humanity is like the host of a parasite, which can be a brutal way to refer to a pregnancy. It's the host of a parasite, and so is compelled to keep on producing and birthing an array of synthetic stuff. A species is about to be born. And like evolution, humanity is randomly delivering more creatures until one of those will take the upper hand and surpass its parents. We are but the numb and dumb vessels waiting for the advent of a greater being. And there is something I really like about this idea, and that's how it decentralizes humanity away from being the protagonist of the story and just makes it a bystander. A lot of sci-fi could use this perspective. And something that I don't like about this idea is this way of looking at it in a way of deculpabilizing our modern system and just saying, well, we just can't help it to make stuff. It's what we're bound to do anyway. And it justifies the exploitation of the world and of the people that produce the crap for an ideal. For the idea that there will be the birth of a superior technological species, which might very well never happen. So once again, one could wonder if technology, things, engineered microbes, or architecture are the children of humanity. Who is bearing them? Who is mothering them? While the minority of investors, engineers, designers, or architects fecundate the machine world, It is a majority of workers and machines that bear their children. And that is forced to keep producing more and more offspring. The workforce is a mother that is forced to keep producing. It is a mother that is not allowed to abort and must always keep on birthing more tech, more objects, while never being given the time and the means to take care of its progeny. A luxury of time to, for example, repair, recycle. And most of the time, the children are taken away very soon after their birth. The workers are the tired surrogate mothers. Labor takes a double meaning. So one could wonder, how long will humanity stay fertile for machines? As resources reduce, as the environment deteriorates, and as the mothers suffer and eventually die out, even with all that sacrificed. The dubious event of another synthetic species is not assured in our given limitations. So to this day, the humanity parent continues to force mothers to birth infinitely more synthetic creatures under the pressure of modern patriarchal and capitalist systems without knowing for sure if the evolution will happen or when it will happen. And in the meantime, it is the earth and the ocean that receive our discarded children. The plastic bags, the broken electronics, the construction materials, it is the earth and the ocean that take them in.
Question number 4. What image comes to your mind when you think of the word fertile? What image comes to your mind when you think of the word fertile? Please answer me in the chat or on paper in one word and in 1 minute. I repeat, what image comes to your mind when you think of the word fertile? What image comes to your mind when you think of the word fertile? Please answer me in the chat or on paper in one word.
And now we continue with Asha.
Hamid, please, video 2. Ei. Het omgekeerde van bevruchten is een omelet. Baren als kippen die hun nest niet vol krijgen. Het ei is niet rond, zodat het niet wegrolt. Deze graslanden met de geur van stikstof en het bloed van mannelijke kuikens, tot akkerranden geen in of uit kunnen vinden. Het omgekeerde van bevruchten is nu, in het midden, een trillende verdelijkheid zonder baren. Elke vorm van kanker die zich tegen mensen voortplant. Lijden is vrijwillig. Hoe kun je lijden in de aanwezigheid van de esthetische oceaan? Zondag, bloeiwijze van een eierstok. Helaas genoten we niet van de nachtelijke uitstapjes, een vruchtbare, kortere weg. We wilden bezonnenheid. Het omgekeerde van bevruchten is de ontdekking van technologie, Neon transformeert de metaforen. Almachtige amenereu, de A van anticonceptie. Kweekvlees, kweekbloemen, kweekzucht. Een conflict is niet op te lossen als het door een verborgen derde wordt aangewakkerd. Dit betekent het einde van lineair denken, deze winterzonnewende. Het omgekeerde van bevruchten is hartvormig, vrijgevig en zorg. De ontdekking van vergankelijkheid is ook de ontdekking van vervangbaarheid. Van rode vlag tot gele bloesem. Een metastase van vlinderbloemen met stroperige nectar.
Last question, number 5. Which animal, plant, or other inanimate being do you identify with? Please answer me in the chat or on paper in one word and in 1 minute. Which animal, plant, or other inanimate being do you identify with? Again, which animal, plant, or other inanimate being do you identify with? And now we continue with Manjot.
Chucha, Bachra, Kato, Booby, Prind, Slater. My subconscious brought back a few Punjabi nicknames that my dad, brother, and partner had given me over time. Chucha means chicken, Bachra means calf, Kato means a squirrel, Booby, the bird booby, Prind, the yellow wasp, Sleda. What does that mean in English? Well, I don't know. But I know that it's a magical creature that can take shape and form of any animate and inanimate being as per desire. It took me 11,993 days to realize that I identify more with animals, birds, and plants. A reassuring sense of harmony infused my consciousness. All the boundaries were wavering, evaporating, seeking new habitats and muses, reinventing love and pain. I read it somewhere that we persist in our loving. I have grown less and less to resemble. I have grown less and less to resemble and more to resemble. Waiting on the bed of tender lotus leaves, this evening, every evening, peering out with my hungry eyes, yearning, seeking. Gray head, white cheek, black bib, rufous neck, my childhood chirrupy friend, still seeking. In the spring, on the trees, behind the flowers, far in distance, under my bed, I wish I could see you again. In the same home, on the same stairs, I will never be tired of waiting, carrying our lonelinesses, our loving, and our grief. Surely your vision stayed stronger than mine, and you left, bird-like flying into the sun, reinventing love and pain. I read it somewhere that we persist in our loving. Someone said to me in the previous birth, when you retreat from extinction, you get a garland of lotus petals around your neck. Out of my flesh and my beak that knows comes the shape I am seeking. The curves of your body fits my thirsty beak. The curves of your body fits my thirsty beak. Yes, it does fit my thirsty beak. Your flesh, warm as sunlight. Your lips, quick as young birds. I hold you, frank in my heart's eye, in my feathers knowing. I feel your skin curving against the newly grown lotus leaves around my neck. Before the moon wants again, we shall come together. Reinventing love and pain. I read it somewhere that we persist in our loving. If you come as softly as wind within the trees, if you come as softly as wind within the trees, you may hear what I hear. You may feel what I feel, see what sorrow sees. If you come as lightly as threading dew, I will take you gladly, nor ask more of you. You may sit beside me, silent as breath. Only those who stay dead shall remember death. And if you come, I will be silent, nor speak harsh words to you. I will not ask you why now, or how. We shall sit here, softly between two different years, and the rich earthly void between us shall drink our tears. Reinventing love and pain. I read it somewhere that we persist in our loving.
And now we continue with Asha. Video 3.
Oh, can it start from the beginning? Thanks. Ziek bloeien dit jaar. Nadat we instortten, zagen we epische metaalbloemen ontkiemen. Een groot aantal dansers, felgele ellebogen en een paarse duinroos met neonoranje meeldraden. Gapende holtes waar de koude doornen waren verwijderd. Alles, zowel functioneel als esthetisch. Plant bombings were side effects during storm and abandonment. Bloemendepressie in de nasleep. De ontwikkeling van een schaderapport, misbruiksrapport, verspillingsrapport. Inactiviteitsrapport, technical non-compliance rapport, misdaadrapport, geen rapport, vals rapport, ergernisrapport en job endangerment rapport. Alleen zo werden de zwakke plekken herkend. Ze noemden ons de orchideeëngeneratie. So sensitive dat er bij aanraking of blootstelling elektronische scheuren ontstonden. Lieve Verenigde Botanici, dierlijk denken is a modest way of marketing. Green generation plants, experimentele cyberorganische planten, weather friendly. Vochtig van onthechting, innerlijk perfect. Gebonden en onaangeraakt als een eenzame schijf. Angst, angst, angst. Dying as a defense. Strange en wigvormig. Gelopt of borstelig, afhankelijk van voorkeur. Hermafrodiete vormen, thick and pulpy, zonder stuifmeelkorrels. Kokervormige helmhokjes, modest but not prudish. Onwrikbaar, mechanisch, doorbloeiend in elk seizoen. En geweldige stickerbloemen voor de kids onder ons.
If humanity is the parents of the synthetic world, then I want to tell you something about one of those bitter children. As soon as we have the camera on, hello, user. Behold me, the flip phone you left to discharge and die in a drawer. Dear being, charge let it capital, have it top jitter hap. You dream of mothering an eternal super technology, but you engineer me to break, lick it, split. %1 charge remaining. Dear human, I am dying, and you have overlooked that you built my corpse out of forever. Jamil in the metropin, let it capital. Ha, 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 ha. %1 charge remaining. My dear critically thinking human, you wonder why my emotions matter. They don't. I am just a machine. I don't have feelings. I don't feel pain. I don't. But you do. everything was always just about you, Mom.
This was the end of our presentation. We still have a collective poem that we made with all of you, so thank you for your answers. Collective poem. This morning I opened my fridge and out of my womb grew an eel, a clove plant, fruit, grape. Out of my womb grew Troy, sorrow, muscle, grew a seed, grew pain, grew a child, grew intuition. Out of my womb grew revolution, a daughter, lovemaking, stranger, hair, stalks. Out of my womb grew green, flesh, guts, grew red, grew empathy, grew birch, grew home. Out of my womb grew stars. Out of my womb grew disturbances. Out of my womb grew feelings. Out of my womb grew jelly, grew connections, grew doubt, grew anxiety, grew calmness, grew conflict. Out of my womb grew confidence, grew love, grew calmness, grew orange. And yet I am the mother of a bastard. I am the mother of moments, the mother of universe, mother of desire, mother of affection, mother of photosynthesis, mother of a daughter, mother of strangers, mother of my mother, mother of Jesus, mother of a cat. And yet I am the mother of dreams, the mother of now, the mother of invention, mother of Amare and Tarek, of art, of love, of chicken. I am the mother of Lupe, mother of flowers, mother of doubt, mother of flakes, mother of myself, mother of snail, mother of garden, mother of work, mother of doing, mother of air, of line, of blue, of soil. Looking at all of my children, laughing and sobbing all at once, I realize I'm drowning in tears. I'm drowning in earth. I'm drowning in conversation, in news, in work, in misery, in stress, in love, in sorrow. I'm drowning in hollowness. I'm drowning in alcohol. I'm drowning in darkness. I'm drowning in snow, in resentment, in mud, in quicksilver, in people. I'm drowning in high fructose corn syrup. I'm drowning in images. I'm drowning in memories. I'm drowning in ice. I'm drowning in eyes. I'm drowning in toxic power structures. I'm drowning in happiness, in moss, in verde, in sand, in milk, in anxiety. I'm drowning in fear, in sweat, in equality, in nostalgia, in thoughts, in sadness. I'm drowning in emotions. I'm drowning in coffee. I'm drowning in sky. I'm drowning in sex. I'm drowning in overthinking.
Whatever happened to my fertility, to my greed, to my soil, to my mind and thinking, whatever happened to my power, to my rich, to my grass, to my guano, to my crescent, whatever happened to a tree and to land, whatever happened to my womb, to my youth, whatever happened to my mother, to the rainforest, to the plowed field, whatever happened to the blossom? to the ovaries and the fruits, to the repetitiveness, to the pomegranate, to the blood. Whatever happened to the moestuin, to the clouds? Whatever happened to the sea? The sprouts, the blood, to the circular, to the worms? Whatever happened to the lands and the sky and the river and the fertilizer? Whatever happened to the clay and the wool, the earth, the vagina, the spill, the citroen, the repetition? Whatever happened to my kids? Whatever happened to my horse? Whatever happened to my brown? It changed. It evolved. As my body slowly transforms into an eel, my body slowly transforms into a bear, into a pigeon, into a butterfly, into a rock and a camel, and then a robot and water, to a donkey, to a fox, to dust, to an iris, to clouds, to pike, to an ashoka tree, to squirrel, to birch. My body is slowly transforming in a warm breeze, in a pine, and from a pine to an octopus, to an iguana, to an hedgehog, to the sun. My body is now becoming the moss, the silt, the sparrow, the tulip. My body is becoming the thyme, the dog, and suddenly an oak, and then into sand and into a crab, to an elephant, and from the elephant to the shrimp and the sponge and the squirrel, and the shrimp and the sponge and the squirrel, to the sponge and the shrimp, into the clouds. My body transforms in the mountain, in the swallow, transforming into a fox that became a horse, that became a wolf, and eventually I transform into water. And so I lay down, and I fall awake. Thank you very much for joining us today. We can turn off the sound, thank you. Ruby.
Thank you.
It's nice to have you back.
Very much for this beautiful and very touching performance. Before we go to the questions and comments, I'm going to introduce each one of you, starting with Asha Karami. Asha Karami is a writer and a doctor living in Amsterdam, and the contours of Asha's poems are porous. Voices, moods, locations, and time merge in writing that is not bound by traditional form. Asha writes poetry, prose, plays, and essays, and collaborates on poetry films with Jan van Eyck, who also created the sound and the videos, the visuals that accompanied Asha's parts today. Currently, Asha is an editor at the Internet Gids and program curator at Purdue Poetry and Experiment. And on the screen, joining us, is Manjot Kaur. Manjot's drawings, paintings, and time-based media summon the mystical, scientific, and absurd to draw attention to current socio-political predicaments and the sovereignty of ecology. Borrowed imagery and text bridge the past and present, which traverse across speculative fiction, visual storytelling, and myth-making, to explore the interconnection between humans and more than humans. And Marie Caye. Marie is a visual artist, performer and designer, and part of the duo Arvid and Marie. Fascinated by the idea of technology as a strange synthetic realm, she explores different localities and scours the land, leading to collections of videos where humans disappear behind their tools, or to cyborg found material where the synthetic and the organic are indistinguishable. So that's a little bit of background from the three performers today. And now we would like to open it up to questions, but also in particular any remarks or thoughts that you have arising from the themes or the ideas that have been brought up through the performance. And these are just as important, or perhaps more important, than questions. So I will open it up to those of you here in the auditorium, and also we'll take questions from online as well. Sophie.
Just a comment. That poem made me a bit teary, and I don't know why, but it's beautiful.
Thanks. It was yours as much as ours.
Thank you so much. It's great to have you here, but it's also great to have you here with these intersections between your practices. I mean, last year, Manjot and Marie collaborated in a piece. I guess there are also many intersections with Asha's work during the residency. So could you talk a bit more what these intersections are, how it came up, a little bit about the backstage of how you came up with this piece for today?
I don't even know who started it. It wasn't me, but I got the question, and I was already interested in both of their works and the themes that they work on. Yeah, I guess Marie already also does a lot with text and poetry and performance. And yeah, I also try to do more than only writing. So also like doing something with digital art, or try to make my language more digitalized, or I don't know, play with it. Or also use digital ways to change my language, like with word shuffle and things like that. Manjot's work, I think it started a bit with her work, and we talked about it last year, and we talked about it, and then I came up with the title. And Manjot made a painting because she was inspired by the title. And then I saw the painting and I wrote a poem because of the painting. And then, then we actually started last month. And then Marie was inspired by the poem. She made a poem, but that was more about, something totally different. And then I was inspired by that and then made another poem. So it was a bit back and forth.
No, I think you said it, yeah. We discussed the topic, and then it just unraveled itself by following each other's work.
I'm looking at you, Manjot, in case you want to add something.
Actually, it started with one of my painting, that's Lajjakari, giving birth to an ecosystem. Like when I look back at that painting and when I created it, I wonder like what was inside of me that created that work. You know, for me, I feel that work is more than what I am. And yeah, to respond to this open call, I wanted to explore fertility, obviously, yes, and sexuality, but also how does both these topics traverse in the domain of fiction and technology? So when I think of fiction, and for me, you know, Asha is the go-to person, and when I look at her texts, super beautiful texts, you know, I can kind of like drown in her texts in a way. I would want to answer that question. And yes, to also to extend further how technology is kind of, you know, enveloping us, all of us, and how as Marie explained very beautifully in her work and also in her research, that how we are slowly moving towards being a technological species, and though we have been, but we are kind of like making big leaps. So I wanted to kind of, yeah, interconnect all these topics. And then, yeah, we started doing the discussions last year. And yeah, over the time it built up, and you see the result, and it's in front of you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Maybe you can take us to Helsinki.
Yes. Do I do that on the? Well, there's one question on the chat. I can take that one first if there's no. So it's from Ben Yao. Are you optimistic about technology and how to differentiate a positive technological being together from neoliberal techno-optimism?
Yes. It's really hard. Like, I would like to answer the question through the idea of parenting. I don't think we can decide what our children are going to become. I don't think we can, in advance, decide what is going to be their future. So, although we might wish for a positive technological being, we don't know. We might try to make it happen, but eventually it will become its own thing. If it becomes its own being. So, but yeah, how to steer away from unhealthy techno-optimism? I'm not sure. I feel like I'm being more and more not techno-optimism. So I'm maybe not the right person to ask. Yeah. Read more sci-fi. There's some good ideas. If you find some, share them with me. I'd love to become optimistic again.
And we can, if there are any questions from anyone at the Rijksakademie or in Helsinki, Marike or Jim. Jim, any questions?
Yes, hello,
Yes.
can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay,
now we can.
Thank you all so much for your contributions to this wonderful program, first off. I was wondering, recently I had a chat with a few colleagues, all of us who are at this age, which like normatively I guess is like a child having age, or where you start thinking about these things. And we were discussing whether it's even whether we would have children in this current climate, and then especially the sort of climate crisis, and different anxieties we have around this. And I was wondering maybe where you stand on this, whoever wants to take this question right away, how you stand on this anxiety that is present, and how this relates also to sort of physical embodiment of this this anxiety in relation to fertility.
I think we all can answer that. Do you want to start? Manjot, do you want to start?
Manjot, do you want to start, says Asha?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, what you just said, I can totally relate to that. That is exactly how I feel. And it's quite stressful to deal with this anxiety. I would like to bring a little bit of my past here, not my past, but my roots here. As I belong to India, I was born there and I've lived there for almost 30 years. And the family that I come from is a bit conventional. So, and then I'm also married. And then your mother and your mother-in-law, they look up to you that you would be a child for them and you would take forward their lineage. So on one side, you understand the larger context of the climate crisis. And on the other side, you have a family pressure. You have pressure from your kin and you see that in their attitude. So that's anxiety squared too, in a way. So it becomes way more difficult in that sense. And this is definitely the core question that sort of informs my practice. And the paintings that I make for me are like solutions. Also in my everyday life, I have lots of like plants in my home. And my favorite pastime is to look at my plants. And that's my way of releasing the stress, releasing the anxiety. And when I see them growing, and when I see them sort of like interconnecting, and recently, like that becomes my stress releasing moment in a way. So it induces a lot of happiness and feelings of joy inside of me. And yeah, and I would also like to bring here a very important research of a scientist called Suzanne Simard. She's based in British Columbia, and she talks about the concept of mother tree. So when I was thinking about this anxiety, and I was thinking about how bringing children in this in this strange world, I do not have other word other than strange here, which is kind of like slowly drowning into different weather patterns, which every year are becoming very, very different, more and more different in a way. So while I was reading her research, she talks about mother trees, and she talks about this phenomena of how old trees, which are like 500, 600, and 700-year-old trees, how they nourish the other plants, how they kind of like send nutrients to them, and this whole network of communication under the ground through mycorrhizal networks sort of like opened up a new world for me, as into how do I look at the phenomena of being a mother in a way, of bearing a child. So that was another thing, like I would go back to the previous questions. When we were conceptualizing our performance, me and Asha, initially, we had a lot of discussions about, what if you are the mother of your mother? What if you are mother of your plant? What if you are mother of a tree? Or what if a tree is your mother in a way, and how do you associate different levels of these intersections, and how does these various intersections sort of interweave into each other? Yeah, I would like to end here and yeah, pass it on to either Marie or Asha.
With Manjot about, in India there's like this huge population, and in the 80s when Indira Gandhi was the president there, my mom, this is a story that I heard from my mom. She's from Iran, but she was living there in the 80s. And she said that men were offered free radio if they had themselves sterilized. So that's also like a way to, control this whole situation. But so I think we, three of us, were thinking how do you make that choice? And I think a lot of it has to do with identification. So a child is what people most identify with, like really think that is like precious, mine, I have to do like every care and do everything for that. And if we could use that energy and all that love that we have and all the care that we want to give, we could distribute it farther away, from ourselves. Then, I don't know. I think for me, that seems like logical to try to practice. And so I think that was also like the main thing for me to write poems that have to do with identification and transformation, and how you can move yourself past like only your humanness, and only how we have learned or think that we can have children. So there is a lot that we can take care of in this world. So for the people that are not, don't feel the big need to have children, I think there's a lot we could do.
Yeah, this is exactly like resonating with this recurring thought I have all the time, which is, why should I make a new one if there's still so many? And that, for me, is true for many things. Why should I buy a new chair if there's already so many chairs that are waiting for someone to use them? Why should I make a new child if there's already so many children that are already looking for someone to take care of them? And that can apply to a lot of things and beings. And I keep thinking about that. I think it's interesting that you asked this question, because it was really the core that triggered a lot of the events that we showed today. This dilemma, this difficulty, and trying to see motherhood in a less conventional way.
I would also like to add one more thing here, and that is, like as you mentioned, that when you come to that age of having children, how do you respond to that? And then a lot of my friends are already having children, and then that's another dilemma, you know. You go and meet their children, and they're very precious in a way. But the other dilemma is, how do you respond to that in a way? I don't have a question to that. Indeed, like I am kind of like, opening up with this question. If anybody in the audience, you know, wants to, say or give any remark about it, you're most welcome. And if not, it's okay.
I have two things. The first one is that several years ago I started looking into adoption, because I had the same thing about, it's something that's innate in our bodies, is that for many of us that we want to have children, but for many reasons I was looking into adoption, and I was talking to my parents about it, and my dad had this comment that to have a child is always a selfish act. It always comes from this compulsion of like wanting this thing, wanting to create this child, which I thought was a really interesting response for somebody who's brought up children and was a teacher all his life, and like has this very kind of compassionate, nurturing personality. But yeah, and then I wanted to maybe pose a question, or maybe just a thought that I guess as somebody who has a womb, it's always this kind of amazement that we're born with all these eggs that don't all turn into children, but they hold this world of possibility, and thinking about a lot of what you were saying about the womb as this place of the cosmos. But I was also thinking about how, I don't know how to say it politely.
Don't say it politely. Don't say it politely.
But it's interesting, I don't even have the words for it, but how like men's body produce this cosmos every time they come, that thinking about water and matter as this ever turning, ever cycling possibility, and then ejaculate being this kind of cosmos of possibility as well, and where that kind of sits within this dialogue of the womb and of nurturing and of possibilities, and how we think about and care about and nurture the the unborn as well and the possibilities of the unborn. And I think that relates to some of the conversations we've been having about dreaming recently, of like these other realms of existence that maybe don't come to physical fruition, but exist nevertheless in the imagination, perhaps. If any of that made any sense.
Oh yeah, that's super nice. I'm actually wondering what is, because cosmos and chronos were created at the same time in Greek mythology. Does anybody remember that? Who created cosmos and chronos? Like they're born from titans? Or they are, yeah. I thought that, yeah, we're looking it up on Google. Yeah, that's great. No, I think that's interesting because these words, they mean something also, right? And like, I would like to know, but let's see. And it's really strange how we have a very black and white view of like how creating this cosmos is such a different thing out of an egg, like from this like mothering attitude, or like out of a man from this ejaculating attitude. And you know, I wonder about that, like how we see these things as like two different things, but eventually it's supposed to be a thing that happens together, but then it gets confusing. And that's when the thing happens.
Also that like we have this finite possibilities within a female's body, but men have an infinite amount of possibilities that they could create, which I think is kind of mind-boggling.
Yeah, but you also have it like, if you have a chestnut tree, there are so many chestnuts that can all become a tree by themselves too. So, yeah, but still you always see the same trees. Like if you walk by the trees, there's never a new one sprouting out. So, yeah, I think, and yeah, I don't know. I also had to think a bit about quantum mechanica and or quantum theory, in the sense of all these possible worlds that can emerge or don't emerge, or all these theories about that, and that if you don't open the box with a cat in it, you don't know if it's dead or alive, but maybe there's like in a other universe there's a cat alive and one is dead, or so that could also be like with all those sperms and eggs and things. Yeah,
there is
it feels very inspiring.
There's a comment in the chat from Diwan Mana. According to Indian mythology, it was the god Brahma who took a deep breath and the cosmos was created. He exhaled and the universe was born, created. But that was.
And we would actually also love if other people know more about this, because I mean, my knowledge is also limited. So if somebody else has thoughts on it or wants to talk about it.
Can I add a little bit more on this? You used these words called nurturing the unborn. It was during the pandemic when I read a news in a local newspaper which said that they were trying to breed, I don't remember which animal, but they were trying to breed a pair of an animal in the zoo, but for many years they were not procreating, so they were not making babies, and that animal was an endangered animal in a way. And with the pandemic and people stopped going out, and so they were just being in their own homes, and the zoos were in a way empty, there was more space. And they procreated the animal which they were trying to procreate from a long time, you know? So with these choices at times, you know, which I embrace, I think of nurturing the unborn, of not the human, but of that of more than human, of the cosmos, you know. Cosmos for me is just not only about human, it's also about other beings. Yeah, that's where for me the phenomena of nurturing the unborn comes in. And yeah, I open up to more of your remarks and questions now.
Are there any questions from Helsinki, from Marika? Or comments?
Well, I must thank you first. It was very beautiful, very rich, and very visual performance, and I love the words and the speeches, and I like this dialogue, all this being part of it. I think it was first time in our academic series, so it makes such a nice effect. We have a group of students here. They look like they have heard they have already received all the answers. Maybe they had questions. I had also about your production or this process, but I think it was well explained, and thank you for the show tonight. And I have my colleague here, Susan, please.
Perhaps it would be nice to hear from our point of view as a collective group in this context, that when you allowed us to participate in your performance and asked us to come up with words, as we watched this kind of semi-drowning head on the screen, we responded very fluidly with the question about drowning in the Helsinki context. So quite interestingly that we feel like we're drowning here, perhaps more than birthing or growing anything, but drowning. But thank you so much. It was really a wonderful intersection of different ideas and works.
Are there any other comments or questions from here? Well, then I'd like to thank you very much, Marie, Asha, and Manjot, for today.
Thank you for having us. Thank you, Ruby. Thank you, Bruno. Thank you, both the technical team that have done wonders. Thank you, Anna and Veronica, for taking the answers. And thank you, everyone, for joining. Hopefully, we can have a little chat. If some of you want, there is the possibility that we send you the last poem that everyone participated in. If you wish for that, please write down your email addresses in the chat. And for the people who are here, you could ask Anna that as your contact. Or you can ask me or Asha, because we are here. Yeah, thanks, Asha. Thanks, Manjot. Such an honor to work with you both. Do you want to say something?
Thank you, Marie.
Have a great evening, everyone.
Maybe it's good to add that for those who just don't want to leave their email in the chat, you can write directly to Anne van Gronsveld. Anne van Gronsveld. Write directly to her. We keep the email private, and you get the poem soon. Good to say that next month, the next Academy Talk will be organized and hosted by the Hikes Academy, and more information will follow soon. Thank you, everyone, and see you next week.